born on the 2nd of May 1975 in Leytonstone, East London, a working-class corner of the city that had no particular reason to produce one of the most recognisable human beings on the planet. His parents, Ted and Sandra Beckham, were ordinary people with an extraordinary obsession: Manchester United. They would regularly make the 200-mile round trip from London to Old Trafford just to watch a match. And they passed every ounce of that passion down to their son. David Beckham grew up not merely loving football, but consuming it. His father quit his own local team so he could dedicate himself entirely to coaching his boy. By the age of 7, young David was already playing for a local club called Ridgeway Rovers. By 8, he was telling anyone who would listen that he was going to play for Manchester United. That dream was given its first real push at 11, when Beckham entered the Bobby Charlton Soccer School's National Skills Competition and won it. Bobby Charlton himself recommended the boy to the club he had served for so long. Manchester United took notice. Beckham signed schoolboy forms with the club on his 14th birthday, and on the 8th of July 1991, at 16, he entered Manchester United's official youth training programme. He had left home, he had crossed the country, but he had arrived exactly where he always said he would. The youth setup he joined would become the stuff of legend. Alongside Ryan Giggs, Gary Neville, Paul Scholes and Nicky Butt, Beckham was part of what would later be called the Class of '92. A generation of academy players so talented that they reshaped English football. Together, they won the FA Youth Cup in 1992. In that group, Beckham was not the most naturally gifted. He wasn't the fastest, and he wasn't the most instinctive. But he was the most dedicated. His work ethic was extraordinary, even by elite standards. He stayed late. He practiced free kicks until his technique was flawless. He bent the ball with an almost mathematical precision. Sir Alex Ferguson had seen hundreds of players come through the doors at Old Trafford. What set this particular young man apart was that he never stopped working. Beckham made his first team debut for Manchester United in 1992, and by April 1995, he had earned his Premier League debut. But the moment that changed everything, the moment that announced him to the world, came on the 17th of August 1996. Playing against Wimbledon on the opening day of the season, Beckham noticed the goalkeeper was off his line. From the halfway line, from roughly 57 yards out, he struck the ball with such swerve and such weight that it floated over the goalkeeper's despairing dive and into the net. It was the kind of goal that had been talked about for decades. It still is. Overnight, Beckham became a household name. What followed was the construction of a genuine superstar. Over the next several seasons, Beckham was one of the most important players in the most successful club in England. His crossing was extraordinary. Whipped, curling balls delivered with pinpoint accuracy from the right flank. His free kicks became an art form. His partnership with Giggs, Scholes and Keane gave United a midfield that was both technically brilliant and relentlessly competitive. In 1998, Beckham was voted Young Player of the Year. A year later, in the 1998-99 season, Manchester United achieved something that had never been done by an English club. They won the league, the FA Cup, and the Champions League in a single season, the treble. And Beckham was central to all of it. Most memorably, delivering the 2 corners from which United scored their last gasp goals against Bayern Munich in the Champions League final. But alongside the triumphs came the turbulence. His relationship with Ferguson was complex from the beginning. It was the relationship of a father and a son who are too similar, who love each other deeply, but who cannot always agree. Ferguson's vision was simple. Football came first, always. As Beckham's fame grew beyond the sport, as he married Victoria Adams of the Spice Girls in 1999, as his face appeared on magazine covers and advertising hoardings around the world, Ferguson began to feel that the balance was shifting. By the early 2000s, he was dropping Beckham from matches, questioning his work rate, and making it quietly but unmistakably clear that the relationship was deteriorating.
The symbolic moment came on the 15th of February 2003. After a 2-0 FA Cup defeat to Arsenal, a furious Ferguson unleashed his anger in the dressing room. Words were exchanged. Beckham swore back at the manager. In a rage, Ferguson kicked a loose boot from the floor. It struck Beckham directly above the eye, opening a cut that required treatment. The following day, Beckham appeared in public with his hair deliberately swept back to ensure the wound was visible. The tabloids went into a frenzy. Whether it was an accident, a statement, or something in between, the boot incident became the defining image of the end of a decade-long relationship. By the summer of 2003, Beckham was sold to Real Madrid. Before that exit, however, England had experienced Beckham at his lowest and his highest. At the 1998 World Cup in France, manager Glenn Hoddle had initially left him out of the starting lineup. He came in, scored a brilliant free kick against Colombia, and seemed on the verge of a defining tournament. Then came Argentina. Fouled by Diego Simeone while lying on the ground, Beckham flicked his leg out in retaliation. The referee produced a red card. 10-man England were eventually knocked out on penalties. Beckham became the national villain. Effigies were burned. Newspapers ran mock dartboards with his face at the centre. He returned to Manchester United and used every ounce of that hostility as fuel. The redemption arrived on the 6th of October 2001. England needed a draw against Greece at Old Trafford to qualify for the 2002 World Cup. By the time injury time arrived, they were losing. Beckham, now the England captain, had been running on adrenaline and willpower all afternoon. Then, in the last moments of the match, he struck a free kick that bent into the top corner of the net with such beauty and such precision that it seemed almost impossible. England qualified. The national villain had become the national hero. It was perhaps the single greatest moment of his England career. At the 2002 World Cup, he helped guide England to the quarter-finals, contributing even while recovering from a broken metatarsal that had made his participation uncertain. He played again at Euro 2004 and was central to the 2006 World Cup campaign, scoring the winner against Ecuador in the round of 16. Before the quarter-final against Portugal, however, he was forced off through illness. England lost on penalties. Beckham announced he was stepping down as captain the following day. In the summer of 2003, he arrived at Real Madrid as the fourth signing of what President Florentino Perez was calling his policy of Galácticos, the assembly of the world's greatest players under one roof. Alongside Zinedine Zidane, Ronaldo, Luis Figo, and Raúl, Beckham brought something none of the others could offer in quite the same way: global marketing power. His first pre-season tour of Asia drew scenes that one Spanish newspaper compared to Beatlemania. In terms of trophies, his first 3 seasons in Madrid were difficult. Real won nothing of significance. But Beckham's professionalism never wavered. He led La Liga in assists in 2005. When new manager Fabio Capello arrived and initially dropped him, Beckham responded not with complaint, but with performance. In the second half of the season, he forced his way back into the starting lineup and played a crucial role as Real Madrid won La Liga for the first time in 4 years. He left on the highest possible note. In July 2007, he signed for the LA Galaxy in Major League Soccer. The reaction was largely one of mockery.
Critics said he was too young, that it was a retirement move disguised as ambition, that he was choosing the beach over the battle.
Beckham rejected that characterization firmly. To prove he still had elite standards, he went on 2 separate loan spells to AC Milan in 2009 and 2010, training alongside the world's best and holding his own. At Galaxy, he eventually won back-to-back MLS Cup titles in 2011 and 2012. He had silenced every doubter, and in 2013, he capped his career with one final title, a League One championship with Paris Saint-Germain, becoming the first English player in history to win league titles in 4 different countries. He retired on the 16th of May, 2013. But what Beckham built beyond the pitch may outlast even his on-field legacy. His contract with LA Galaxy had contained a quiet but extraordinary clause, the option to purchase an MLS expansion franchise for a fixed price of $25 million. In 2018, he exercised it. Inter Miami CF began playing in 2020, and by 2023, Beckham had pulled off one of the most audacious signings in football history, bringing Lionel Messi, widely regarded as the greatest player who ever lived, to Miami. The franchise that cost $25 million is now valued at over $1 billion. He had become, alongside his playing career, one of the most successful sports entrepreneurs in the world.
And then there is the brand. Few athletes in history have built a commercial identity as enduring as Beckham's. Fashion lines, long-term partnerships with Adidas and others, cologne campaigns, luxury endorsements. His face has represented an aspirational image of modern masculinity that transcends any one sport. Together with Victoria, he built a household name that operates in culture as much as in football. They raised 4 children, Brooklyn, Romeo, Cruz, and Harper, largely in the public eye, managing the impossible task of maintaining some semblance of privacy while being among the most photographed families on earth. David Beckham was never the fastest footballer. He was never the most naturally gifted. He was not a dribbler, not a great tackler, not someone who could single-handedly win a game through individual brilliance in the conventional sense. What he was exceptional in precision, extraordinary in work ethic, and almost uniquely resilient in the face of public pressure. He was vilified by an entire nation and came back to score the most important free kick England had seen in a generation. He was cast aside by the greatest club manager of his era and went on to win a title in his final season at the club that replaced him. He was laughed at for moving to America and ended up owning a franchise worth $1 billion. The story of David Beckham is ultimately about reinvention. Not the reinvention of someone who ran from failure, but of someone who consistently faced it, absorbed it, and emerged from the other side with something larger than before. He was a footballer who became a celebrity, who became an icon, who became a businessman, who became a builder of the game he loved. Each version was real, each version was deliberate, and in the end, the sum of all those parts produced something that football alone could never have created. The sum of all those parts produced something that football alone could never have created.